Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is the subject of a major police investigation after being accused of money laundering. Netanyahu is calling the suspicions baseless, but the scandal is all over the Israeli news. So is it true? Mitchell Barak is one of Netanyahu's former aides who used to handle financial contributions for the Israeli leader. While Barak often has criticism for the Prime Minister, he told ILTV's Steve Leibowitz that Netanyahu has always been very careful about obeying the law.
Well, I worked for the Prime Minister for 4 years, when way before he was Prime Minister, even for the first time. I find some of these stories hard to believe because the Prime Minister is a very careful individual, and he works directly with lawyers, with David Shimron, who is his lawyer, and everything that I was involved in that was campaign financing was done by the book, and even above and beyond the letter of the law. So whereas I often have criticisms of the Prime Minister and of his management style and of his performance, certainly on this you're not going to hear one word of criticism from me.
Let's look at this trip to Africa. 4-day trip, supposedly cost over $12 million. A lot of criticism in the press over that. But it is an historic visit, isn't it?
The Hebrew press has really skewered the Prime Minister on this trip to Africa, and I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, Africa is opportunity for Israeli companies, Israeli businesses. A lot of Israeli companies, whether they be in construction or electronics or defense or consulting companies, are working in Africa, and they want those channels opened. And a visit by the Prime Minister is historic. It promotes business, it promotes relations. Each of these countries has an economy which is important to Israel. Each of these countries has a vote in the United Nations. So I'm not really sure where all this criticism is coming from. Also the fact that he's going to Uganda, to Entebbe, for a ceremony to mark 40 years since the very daring Israeli operation there, where his brother was killed. I think that is very significant, and I think that some of these criticisms are really unfounded.
Coming back home and to the Israeli political scene in our cabinet, we've now had some time, a little bit of time, to look at the functioning of Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman. Mm-hmm. He reportedly told the senior officers not to speak to Naftali Bennett. There seems to be some friction between them. Every time there's anything fired towards Israel, either from Gaza or from Syria, he immediately responds. He seems to be wanting to take tough action in the West Bank. Do we have a good sense yet of exactly where Lieberman is going with this, with his role as Defense Minister?
First of all, I'll start off with a compliment to Defense Minister Lieberman, which is connected to the Africa visit of the Prime Minister. I think one of Lieberman's greatest successes as Foreign Minister was the fact that he actually paid attention to many of these African countries. And he was, in fact, the first Prime Minister to visit the first Foreign Minister to visit many of these countries, including going back as far as Golda Meir. So for many, many decades, Israeli leaders, even from the level of Foreign Minister and above, have not visited them. He actually invested time in them and opened up some of those relationships. When it comes to the Defense Minister, the newly installed Defense Minister's performance, I think first of all we have to separate between Lieberman as the opposition man and the opposition man even within the government when he's not the defense minister, and words are very cheap, and it's very easy for him to criticize the sitting defense minister and saying we need to destroy Hamas, we need to destroy Gaza, we need to destroy whatever else, and give him 48 hours and he'll do the job. Well, now we have the responsible Avigdor Lieberman, the one that has to think before he acts, the one that also has to look tough for his own constituent base. And I think he's finding that it's very hard to do that, because when missiles are fired in or when there's a terrorist attack, sometimes the best response is no response militarily. But from a public opinion standpoint, that's never the best response. So he's feeling that out. He has an issue. Certainly within the cabinet, there's really a fight going on, not just between him and Naftali Bennett, but for the voters of the right of center, for those that aren't going to vote for the Likud again. And he needs to kind of stake out his territory as defense minister and for those voters. And Naftali Bennett, the education minister, he's not in the defense establishment. So he's, first of all, speaking outside of his expertise, his ministerial expertise, and secondly, he's kind of affecting the job that the defense minister can actually do, and he's actually promoting his policies through Facebook. And the government and the cabinet should really be discussing these issues behind closed doors and not in Facebook.